Good morning and welcome to the November edition of the Jamf Breakfast Club. My name is Craig Smith and I'm going to be your host this month. Please remember that you can join us on the first Thursday of every month to get insight on everything Apple and Jamf in education. Before I introduce today's guest, I just would like to invite you to maybe post some reasons or comments on what's brought you here today. We'd love to get some interaction later on as we get into the conversation with Richard. So please remember to post those questions or comments into the comment section. Today, we're going to be discussing how we can create a safe and secure learning environment outside of the four walls of the classroom. And to chat about this with me, it's a pleasure for me to introduce Richard Anderton, who is a digital transformation lead at the Arthur Terry Learning Partnership, a multi-academy trust of 20 schools spread across the Midlands area. So good morning, Richard, and welcome to the Breakfast Club.
Good morning, Craig. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to talk about iPads, one-to-one devices, and also how to create that safe learning experience for children inside and outside the school. As Craig mentioned, I'm the digital transformation lead for the Arthur Terry Learning Partnership, and I'm really looking forward to sharing with you our experiences, our journey, and our next steps with you this morning.
Fantastic. I almost said welcome back, because if you did tune in last month, we had we didn't do the Breakfast Club in October. We actually had a back to school session, which was an evening session, which you can catch on demand as well. So you might have saw Richard there. So if you didn't, I would recommend catching up with that one later. I wonder if you could just tell us a bit more about Learning Futures, which a program that you're currently sort of part way through, and just sort of give us some insight into what's going on there and what the program is.
Definitely. So Learning Futures is the Arthur Terry Learning Partnership's equitable one-to-one device program, where we're providing each member of staff across our family of 20 schools with an iPad to support and enhance their learning at school and at home. For us, this was a really important decision, especially after COVID, where we saw the digital divide and how that grew and how that was really brought to the forefront. So for us as a forward-thinking trust, we really wanted to make a stance and provide that equitable access to children, to our schools, to our families, to ensure that we were providing them the best educational experience, but also preparing them for life in the future. So as you said, Craig, we're partway through that journey. Now we've rolled out to 3 of our schools, with a further 5 in January and the remaining 12 in September. So it's been really interesting to be on that journey. We've had some great learning that we've had from one of our primary schools, Mere Green Primary School, which is an Apple Distinguished School, and we're really looking forward to rolling that success out and increasing that capacity across our trust.
Fantastic. And what we're hearing, obviously, a lot of multi-academy trusts across England looking at similar schemes. I guess what was the kind of catalyst for this for you? When did it all begin? You mentioned Mere Green, the Distinguished School, and I know we chatted a bit about them before, but for those listening, where did this all start? How did it come about? What was the sort of nucleus for it all?
I think, as you said, Mere Green has been one-to-one since 2017, so we have had some great sort of evidence and impact from there. But as I think a lot of trusts and a lot of organisations will say, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, the real catalyst, I believe, was COVID and how clear that digital divide, not just within our trust, but across the country was. So ensuring that we provided that equitable access to children, so that no matter the postcode that they're in, no matter the background that they come from, they're provided exactly the same opportunity as any child within any of the schools within our trust. And for us, that really sits above the curriculum and the teaching and learning at one point. It's really ensuring that we're providing children with the tools, the experiences, the opportunities to be successful, to be engaged in society as a whole in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I've heard similar things, but I think we're as a society, we are getting to this point, which I think is fantastic, that we're we do see that equity of access is so key. And was there, you mentioned obviously Mere Green, distinguished school, been using iPad for a while, you were able to sort of garner evidence and impact from there. Was there any other sort of contributing factors? Did you just decide, well, we did it there, it meant automatically it was going to be an Apple device, or was there other considerations that you undertook?
I think for us, it was maybe slightly different from other trusts where we've had, as you said, that experience and that evidence base. And for us, there was no other option other than iPad and Apple. For us, it's the market leader in educational devices, the quality of it, the cost that you can actually purchase it for with Apple Financial Services and the support that they offer there, but also the ease of use for children as well. The iPad apps and how they're seamlessly linked together so that those skills can be developed. And for our teachers as well, having a high quality device, iPad Pros for teachers, means that they're really able to complete their jobs to the most effective and efficient standard. Far more efficient than before with laptops where you're waiting 10-15 minutes sometimes to boot up, etc. So giving them and providing them with the most effective device was really important for us. And of course, education in Apple has been a part of them for 40 years now. So the support that they've offered and the support that our partners at Sync have offered, and yourselves at Jamf as well, has really created a partnership where we can take this forward.
Fantastic. No, I think that is so important, that understanding the educators, understanding learning, understanding how that technology can make an impact. And as you say, Apple been doing it for 40 years. We've not been quite doing it that long, but 20 years. And we've been supporting education for a very long time as well, and very privileged to be working with you on this project. You mentioned COVID. COVID's been an accelerator. I think it's not it might have been the reason to do it for some institutions. I know we've got quite a varied audience here today, looking through some of the institutions that signed up. We've got quite an international feel, so we've got people from South Africa, from India, from UAE, all over. So I'd love to hear comments and questions about where you are on your journey. Is this something that you're just sort of thinking about? Are you further along the line? Please remember to post those questions. But I did want to pick up on the point that, yes, it's accelerated things. Yes, it's moved things forward. But I've also seen people reverting back to how things were before. They're like, oh, right, we got through COVID with devices, right, we can go back to normal. And sometimes it's maybe because they didn't use a lot of technology within their teaching practice. What would you say to those schools about how maybe they use the technology to get them through the period of lockdowns, etc., but now they've maybe reverted back to the old ways, if we can call it that?
I think that's a valid question. And I know that technology, especially one-to-one devices in school, is still quite a contentious issue in England anyway. As you said, Craig, we've got guests from different areas of the world. And I know in countries like you said, the UAE, in the Nordic countries, it's just part and parcel of daily practice, and it is seen as the done thing. So I think in England anyway, Scotland's really moving forward with Scottish Borders and Glasgow Council, etc. But in England, I think we're still on that journey. And I can understand if teachers and school leaders are slightly cautious about implementing one-to-one devices, because ultimately technology isn't a silver bullet that will magically solve any issues. It's all about that careful planning and implementation. And that's what we've really ensured to do across the ATLP. Of course, we had the evidence base at Mere Green, but we've really tailored that and thought about the most effective way to do that. The messaging is really important. We don't want technology to be seen as an add-on or a bolt-on to school life and to teaching and learning. It needs to be interwoven between everything we do so that it's embedded within classroom practice. Now, to do that, as a trust, we've identified 5 key strategies, our evidence-informed principles to enhance teaching and learning through technology. And they're called the top 5 strategies for the digital classroom. Now, ours are evolved around, obviously, Apple products, but the principles and the strategies can be moved around and adapted to different devices. But for us, it's looking at how we can enhance modeling and explanation through Apple TV, through AirPlay, how we can support behavior management in the classroom, which I know we'll go on to shortly, through Apple Classroom and Jamf Teacher, how we can support the needs of all pupils to succeed in the curriculum through accessibility features, how we can enhance assessment through technology, and also workflow, how we can support teachers' workload, enhance efficiencies in the classroom, and importantly, reduce that printing that I know is a massive
always comes up.
Always comes up, but it's something that we can really reduce. So looking at, we've chosen Shobi, how we can use workflow to really have that ecosystem within the classroom. But to do that, you need to have sustained CPD. As I said, you can't just throw, in our case, 11,000 iPads into a classroom and expect it to work. You've really got to have that sustained CPD. So a first point of call for us is all teachers and all classroom staff becoming Apple Teacher, which is a free self-paced course from Apple, which supports staff in becoming more confident with iPad and the Apple apps, but then making sure that we've got a sustained CPD program revolving around the top 5 so that staff are confident and competent in using technology in the classroom. And we've also got our ATLP Apple Regional Training Centre, which we will use to facilitate these courses for ATLP staff, but also for staff around the region, around the country, and also around the world. All our courses are webinars. We've got some face-to-face, but a lot of webinars. And I believe that a link to those courses for this half term is being shared in the chat. So it'd be great to see some of you there.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that's great to see. The RTC program is something I was involved in the past, and I think it's one of the best things that Apple do. And I think it's great to see that now that that's been sort of digitized and we're embracing the technology and we're able to sort of reach a bigger audience, because I know it can be tricky sometimes when you've had a long day at school as a teacher, and maybe the last thing you want to do is drive another 30 minutes down the road to do some CPD, but being able to do it from the comfort of your home is always great. I love those 5 key pillars. I want to pick up on one specifically today. Obviously, we're here to talk about how we can prepare devices to go home, but before we got to that step of taking devices home, we mentioned kind of classroom preparation. Some trusts, some schools might look at technology as, well, I could be quite nervous about every student sitting in front of me with a device. I might not know as much as them. You mentioned obviously CPD, but from a technology standpoint, how are you helping prepare those devices so that it gives the teacher at the front of the room a bit more control, a bit more confidence that that people are not going to be running off sort of doing what they want?
Yeah, so I think this works in 2 ways, and through our partnership with Jamf and Jamf School, we can support staff through the back end and how we set up the devices. Now, schools and individuals may have different beliefs and different opinions about how devices are used. For us at the ATLP, we see these as an educational device. These aren't a personal device as well, and these aren't for these devices aren't for social media or for gaming, etc. In addition to education, these are just an educational device. So for us, it's really important that how these devices are set up in the back end ensure that is the case. So, for example, making sure our filtering and monitoring policies are stringent, and making sure that when they go home, that is the case as well. But also how they are set up so that children, for example, can't download any apps that they want and play on anything. But then in the classroom, how teachers can have control so that it's not impacting on teaching and learning. And we see those as the 2 main aspects. So Apple Classroom, being able to lock whole class, group, individual iPads, being able to guide them into certain applications and lock them in there so that they can't move on to other apps, being able to view the screen of all devices, which we see as 2 things. It's a behavior management strategy, but it also enhances that checking for understanding. When you're lapping the classroom, by having all those screens in front of you, you've got a much greater visibility of the classroom practice so that you can move learning on even faster. The second part of that is Jamf Teacher, and this is something that we're working on implementing across our schools, and I believe it will be really beneficial to those secondary schools that we have in our trust, and for any secondary colleagues here. I know that potentially at secondary school, it may be even more of a daunting concept to introduce one-to-one devices to teenagers. We may have some preconceptions about how they may be used, but to support that, Jamf Teacher offers almost another level of protection where we can lock the use of a camera, lock the use of AirDrop on and off, so that the teacher really does have full control over that device, so that they can concentrate on the most important thing, which is teaching and learning, and not be concerned about behaviour management.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to sum that up. I know we've popped some information in the chat about Jamf Teacher. I would just like to take a few minutes just to describe kind of how we got here with Jamf Teacher. For those that have been around Jamf for a long time, might remember a product called and when Jamf Pro was called Casper Suite, and we had a product called Casper. We used to have a thing called Casper Focus, which was kind of one of the first of its kind, I believe, and this predates Apple Classroom, and that was very much that kind of classroom management type tool, like you say, Richard. When Apple brought out Classroom, we loved what they were doing there, and we decided at that point that it made sense to fully support Apple Classroom, and Focus was something that sort of gently kind of went away. However, we did bring back Jamf Teacher, or we developed Jamf Teacher rather, really to complement Apple Classroom. We were in a position where we saw what Apple were doing, and we wanted to build upon that. How can we enhance some of those features? And like you say, some of those additional sort of classroom management features, like being able to switch the camera off if it's a distraction, like being able to guide people into multiple apps. And one of the most common uses is being able to reset the PIN code on the device, so a teacher can do that straight from the app. No need to go to IT, just really keep the flow of learning going and not sort of disrupting the classroom. So yeah, check out the link for that one.
Yeah. And I think for me, like you said, Craig, it's not for us at the ATLP. It wasn't an either or. It wasn't Apple Classroom or Jamf Teacher. Exactly. It was looking at how Apple Classroom is used, and how Jamf Teacher can offer another layer and can enhance the offer that Apple Classroom does.
Absolutely. We had a session back at our back to school the other month where we were talking about how you can roll out Jamf Teacher just with some of the features, so you don't have to turn all the features on from day one, which is really good. So if you are sort of worried about overwhelming teachers, then you can sort of decide what you want to do with regards to that. You can hold some of the functionality back so that you're not overwhelming. Picking up on the CPD point, which is a great point. I love the fact that you've got that full sort of program. You're integrating things from Apple Teacher program. We also have a complementary program that sits alongside the Jamf Teacher app, Jamf Educator. It's all done online, similar to what you'll experience with Apple Teacher, and that's something that I know that we will be exploring very shortly after Terry with you, and really keen to get on that journey. So we'll post some links about Jamf Educator for those that are interested as well. So great. So we're happy that we've got devices in a state where teachers, staff feel confident that they've got that element of control. They can guide the learning. We've got the CPD program in place, so hopefully we're feeling a bit more confident to use them. I think devices going home is, for some, it's another step. Do we want to do this? What sort of what are we opening up ourselves to here if we allow that to happen? My belief is to get the biggest impact, the biggest return on investment as well. Let's face it. If the device is going to be sat in school for most of the time, you're not maybe getting that big the biggest return on investment that you can. But I guess for Terry, do you have devices going home? If so, what sort of considerations did you have to make as a leadership team to go through that?
Yeah, so I think devices going home, again, it's an aspect that needs to be really well thought through, and it's not a decision that should be taken lightly. At the ATLP, we pride ourselves on being a safeguarding first trust. Safeguarding is the responsibility of everyone and sits above the curriculum sits above teaching and learning is the most important thing for schools and for trusts. So making that right decision, ensuring that we planned and prepared for that, we had the systems, the policies, the procedures in place to ensure that it was a success, was really important. For us, we have decided that, like you said, Craig, to get the most out of learning futures, to get the most out of one-to-one devices, to be able to completely transform that school community and create a closer link between what happens at school and what happens at home. Devices going home was really important for us. So devices go home from year 1, which is the age of 5, right the way to year 13. And we've really looked at how that can transform a whole school community, how parents can have a greater view and understanding about what's happening at school so that they can greater support at home. And for us, we've identified key milestones throughout a child's education where we really see that one-to-one devices can enhance provision. Of course, it enhances all, but the key ones we've looked at are, for example, phonics screening in year 1. So how can we provide additional resources, additional support to families, to parents, to carers, so that we can really push and be successful with the phonics screening program, so parents have a greater understanding of the strategies that are taught at school, and children can have that further practice. Year 4, multiplication check, how children can have greater practice around that, taking devices home, etc. Year 6 SATs, GCSEs, A-levels, we can really see how these can further enhance provision. But as I said again, that link between school and home is really important. And I think for us, looking back at Mere Green, we had that evidence again, where we really saw how devices going home removed the schools, the wall of the schools almost. No longer now, if a child was really engaged in an activity or a subject, and it got to the end of the day, they'd have to stop or wait to the next week to complete the activity, or it would just get forgotten about. That can continue at home. But also, if a child is absent, I know this isn't as much at the moment, but for example, when we were back at school, but not really back because of COVID, and there was lots of isolation and classrooms having to go home, etc. Having a device at home means that children don't miss that learning. They can catch up on it and can ensure that those learning losses are mitigated. So the power that one-to-one devices and iPad going home is fantastic, but getting it right and ensuring safeguarding comes first is imperative.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love the sentiment of that. I remember a long time ago, right at the kind of start of the kind of iPad explosion really in education, I remember a head teacher saying to me that he described it as the ability to expand time, the fact that no longer does learning stop at 3:30. We know that every student, every pupil is taking a device home and has got that ability to continue that learning. And back to one of the first points you made, Richard, about equity of access. You know, a lot of students, so a lot of pupils will be fortunate enough to have a computer at home, have technology at home that they can use, but a lot won't. So now that you know that you've leveled that playing field, everyone gets that equity of access, but also access to resources and apps that you want to provide. So I think that's a really good point. Picking up on the safeguarding piece, and it's obviously the main topic of today, so we do want to dig into that. What sort of measures are you taking to ensure that you're keeping students safe? You're sort of taking that responsibility as it goes home as well, to ensure, to give parents that confidence.
I think the first point of call, I will go on to the more sort of logistical side of monitoring, filtering, etc., and how we set up the devices. But most importantly is the curriculum and how we can ensure that within our curriculum we've got a progressive, stringent internet safety and sort of safer internet curriculum that provides children with the knowledge to be able to self-regulate, so that they can make the best decisions around keeping safe. We live in a technological world where children are having mobile phones earlier and earlier, and they're going to grow up in an even more technologically advanced world. So it's important, imperative, that the curriculum is your main driver for for supporting children in developing that knowledge of keeping safe. And we have taken the approach of being preventative instead of reactive. And that preventative aspect is ensuring that the curriculum is the driver for us. Going on to the actual devices, as I touched on before, for us, we see this as an educational device. So how we set the device up, as I touched on earlier, supports that safeguarding. So we've gone down the route that the filtering process, the firewall that is at school is the same as at home. So anything they wouldn't be able to get on at school, they won't be able to get on at home. But you can also do other things such as adding Jamf profiles, where as time goes on at night, certain applications will drop off, or the functionality of the device may become a bit more tailored, which supports parents as well. Another thing that we're going to really drive forward with, and Craig, I know you're going to touch on in a moment as well, is Jamf Parent. And for us, Jamf Parent was a no-brainer in how we can support our community and our parents, our carers, in the buy-in process for this. Now, if I think back to 2017, we sent devices home, and we did workshops, and we supported parents, but then for us, we didn't have that application that really gave parents the power to take ownership in devices, and that's what Jamf Parent does. So we're currently piloting, or we'll be piloting Jamf Parent at 3 schools across our trust, and this will then be rolled out across our whole partnership, so that parents have control, just like teaching in the classroom. Parents have that sort of anxiety taken away from them about how devices are used at home. And for us, it's all about partnership. We're providing the devices, so we need to ensure that from our end, we're making the right decisions and putting the right support and safeguarding plans in place. But we don't want to take that responsibility away from the parents as well, because we don't want to de-skill them in their roles at home. It's a really fine sort of relationship that needs to be had. So we want to give them the tools to be able to parent effectively at home when using technology.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it, Richard. You do walk this tightrope a little bit, and the way I see it is you provide that sort of foundational configuration on the device to ensure certain things are secure and you don't have access. And as you said a few moments ago, it is very much a learning device at Arthur Terry, and that is how you see it. We see some other trusts that have different views on that, and we can do things in Jamf School with like allowing certain apps to be used at certain times, like you touched on. But yeah, I think it's a great point on parent, allowing them to parent. And the parent app, I'll just describe it a little bit for those of you that don't know about it. Really, it's an application that would be put on the parent's device. We do support other devices, not just Apple devices in this case, because we want it to be equitable as well, where they have got certain control features to be able to turn off the access to apps, to things like Safari, and they can also set almost create these device rules so that at the same time every day they're going to automatically be enforced. So it's not like you have to remember as a parent. You're a parent, you're busy, you've got lots of things to think about. You don't have to be thinking about that every single day. So if you've got things that say, we don't want you playing games, we don't want you on the internet while we're having dinner or tea, depends on what part of the UK you're in, what you call it, that you make sure that's, the device is locked, or the apps are not available. And you can do that with a few clicks of the button. We have shared some resources there. We've got resources for schools and trusts that they can actually send to parents about how you would set that up. The thing to remember, ultimately the school has control, so we don't want to be in a situation where a parent's locked a device and when you go back into school the device is locked. So you've always got that ultimate control that you can override certain things if we ever get into that kind of situation. Touching on just security in general, it's an area that Jamf are getting into more and more. What I'm finding is, and Richard, you mentioned this, it tends to be a a sort of blended approach, a layered approach when it comes to security. I love your call out about education and actually educating the young people of how to navigate the internet safely, because once they leave school, or as you mentioned, mobile phones, you can't always be there. But I think what we can try and do is create those kind of safety nets to make sure that if you do sort of veer off for whatever reason, if by accident or by design, that those safety nets are there to sort of catch you, so to speak. The big thing for me is, and I'd be interested to get your views on this, is how do we leverage, not leverage, how do we balance security and safety and experience? Because iPad's a powerful tool. It's a great experience to use one. I'm sure most people here have used an iOS device of some kind. But how do we create an experience that's safe and secure, but also doesn't take too much away from the sort of pleasure of using an Apple device?
I think that's it's a really important question, and I don't necessarily think there's a one size fits all answer for this. I know that certain trusts have a different approach, and how the approach may vary is up to that organisation, as long as they are confident that they are doing the best for the children. And I know that this may vary across different countries, different continents as well. But for us, it's making sure that, yes, the curriculum is in place and that the children, like you said, are supported in making the right decisions. But we are working with young people that sometimes enjoy making the wrong decisions, and that's all part of learning. But we want to ensure that our safeguarding doesn't allow them to be put into those situations, to be able to view things that would upset them, would make things difficult for them, without, like you said, limiting the experience. For us, we're lucky that using Apple, the built-in applications are fantastic and that they are safeguarded. But for us, we've got a policy where each of the apps that are going on the iPad, we ensure that they are safeguarded and tested. And it's a constant back and forth, because anyone who with teaching a school with one-to-one devices, or I'm sure with children, knows that young people are very savvy with technology, and they will find workarounds, which is always going to happen. So as educators, we are sort of always playing catch up, but it's ensuring that we do keep children safe without limiting the effectiveness of user experience. One example would be an application that we liked using, a sort of whiteboarding app, and Trust may have a different opinion of what we did here, but whiteboarding app that we used in the classroom, we found out that children were setting up a sort of joint whiteboard at home and using it as a messaging app, which for us, we didn't want to be put in that situation as a trust, and we didn't want the children or anything to happen in that situation. So it's ensuring that the applications we use are safeguarded and protect our children.
Yeah, as you said, they're smart. Children are smart, and they will find a way, usually roundabout things. So I mean, that's like, I wouldn't even have thought of that. It does show how, as you get older, your creativity does stifle a lot, and it's children are very clever, as you say, and they will find ways and means. In terms of how you approach different, you've obviously mentioned right from 5-year-olds right throughout to your oldest pupils. I've got devices going home. Do you have like a sort of nuanced approach? Do you have different rules for different levels within your trust?
I think at the moment, where the point of the journey we're at now, it is something that is across the board. But I think as we develop and we mature in our project, and we move further down that line, we will look at how, dependent on the age group, we can change things so that they're more tailored. I mean, little examples that we have done. Younger down in school, like you said, year 1, year 2, we've removed the news app from the iPad because news articles can come up that aren't suitable for children. We have had that before. Older up in whether that be upper key stage 2, secondary school, that news app is on there because it's a tool that children can use to engage with society, etc. And we've done the same with other applications as well. We have and will be trialing with one of our schools, looking at, I know we talked about the iPad being an educational device, but how we can use the iPad to support the positive decisions and the positive things that pupils do at school. So, for example, as a praise sort of point reward, how can we put Netflix on an iPad or something like BBC iPlayer or something as a reward for young people for making those right decisions? And through the power of Jamf School, we can push and pull those applications very easily and very quickly.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you say things will. You've got the ability to be fluid and flexible and change things as you mature through future learning and through the sort of rollout of these devices. You will learn a lot of things along the way. I did want to quickly mention Jamf has recently got into the sort of security space with regards to education. We launched a product back in September called Jamf Safe Internet. I'm not going to talk about it too much, but what I will say it's an area that we're really keen to make an impact in. We've seen a lot of different solutions in the market. We don't believe there's anything currently there that's perfect. So we're doing a lot of things like this. We're talking to people who are using devices like Arthur Terry, and we're trying to find a balance, as I mentioned before, between that safety, but also making sure that we're not being so heavy-handed that the devices are so locked down, so restricted that you have teachers and pupils, sort of shunning the devices and not wanting to use them because of that. So we'll pop some information in the chat about that one as well for anyone that's interested. I know we're coming up to the end of our time today. It's been really great chatting to you, Richard. If people want to reach out to you personally or to find more about the trust, where's the best place to find you or find information about the trust?
I believe in the chat, the link to our Learning Futures program page has been shared. On that, you'll be able to see our course schedule for our region training centre, but you'll also be able to keep up to date with the progress we've made, the learning that takes place at school, and our journey as we navigate a one-to-one device program. I have also a Twitter page myself, which is at Mr. RJ Anderton, which I know I share similar things and updates about one-to-one and the power of technology to transform teaching and learning as well.
Superb. Now I'll give people maybe 30 seconds to post any questions. It tends to be with these things. Sometimes we get lots of questions. Sometimes we get people that just want to sit and just listen. And it's been really fascinating hearing more about your ambitious program that you've got going in the moment. I'm really excited to get the pilots launched as well, which we'll be doing very, very shortly. So it'll be great to perhaps invite you back maybe in 6 months' time just to see how that has gone, how that is going, and we'll get a bit of an update for you. And that's something that we're looking to do. I will quickly plug next month's Breakfast Club. We will be back same time next month, first Thursday of the month. My colleague Matt will be hosting that one. We have a panel actually. We have 3 different people coming on from St Cyrus School, an Apple Distinguished School as well, down in Wales. They've been doing iPad for, I think, since 2015, around similar sort of times to Mere Green as well. They're a secondary school, and we did a case study with them way back at the start, and again we're going to be revisiting that one, and we're going to be exploring specifically creativity in the classroom as a topic that we're going to home in on there. So please remember to join us for that one. You can catch any past sessions on demand. The Jamf Breakfast Club page, which has just been posted, so you'll be able to get everything on demand there, including today's session will be posted. So if you've got any colleagues that you want to share it with, or if you just want to hear back maybe some of the things that Richard said, you want to pick up on that. If you missed anything, please catch us on demand. So without further ado, great to have you on, Richard. Lovely to see you again, and we hope to have you back here again next year, perhaps, and we can revisit it. But thanks once again.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Jamf, and to all those people that have tuned in. And again, for me, it's really important that on these journeys, these digital journeys, when it is still quite new to schools and to education, that we share best practice and share successes, learning points, and how we can all improve together. So if anyone feels like they'd like to reach out, share what they're doing at their school or their trust, or if we can offer any support to anyone listening, that would be absolutely amazing. So get in touch if you'd like to, and we can look at how we can support each other moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, and this is really the intentions of Breakfast Club. So thanks for calling that out, Richard. So thanks everyone for tuning in. We hope to see you back next month or catch you on demand. Thanks once again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.